Pedal platform amps have been around for a fair while now, I suppose, and are pretty popular, rightly so. Pedals are a huge part of what we do, and so having the best amp to layer those pedals on top of seems to be pretty important to people. I myself am a fan and adopted that way of building my tone pretty early on, actually, when I bought the Victory V40, one of the first popular amps in that genre, I suppose. But do you actually need a pedal platform amp to use pedals? Well, the answer is obviously no, you don't. But do you need one to get the most out of the most pedals? And I think the answer to that, as dodgy a question as it is maybe. So I put a little experiment together. We're going to put this theory to the test and hopefully answer that weird question I just asked. We have my Victory V40, the amp you've heard probably 99% of my pedal demos over the years. There's a reason for that. I think it makes the pedal sound as the pedal is supposed to sound. I guess the definition of a pedal platform amp. And then we have the Victory VC35 Copper, an amp that in my opinion is not a pedal platform amp. Sort of based on a Vox AC30 type thing, such an old school amp that was, truth be told, never designed to be used with pedals. And then I have a little board here with a variety of effects from some fuzzers, a couple of drives, sort of an amp-like drive as well in particular, and then some time-based effects as well. And we're going to see how the amps differ and how they react differently to the pedals set exactly the same for both amps. Maybe this is now a good time to lay out the definition of what, or at least what I think the definition of a pedal platform amp is. To me, a pedal platform amp is relatively sterile or bland sounding on its own when you plug it straight into the front end, your guitar straight into the front end. I'm not sure anybody's going to really do that with a pedal platform amp. You're not going to get a wide range of tones that way. It's designed to layer your pedals on top of that to get your character that way, I suppose. Therefore, they are pretty clean with a decent amount of headroom, and I guess closer to the Fendery American side of things than the British side of things. And the V40 is a perfect example of that to my ears. Pretty bland sounding, pretty dark sounding when you use it with no pedals, but really comes to life when you start stacking and messing around with effects in the front end. For me, a non-pedal platform amp is the exact opposite of all the above. Closer to a more old school vintage design and tone, with less kind of clean headroom and breaks up faster. A few things to note across the board. I've not set the amps to sound similar. Kind of defeats the whole point of this video. I've set them how I would set them individually. Both are going into the Boss Waza tube amp expander, set with the same 212 IR thing in there. The only thing I'm adjusting is the reactive load. I decided to use my Les Paul Jr. Yes, it's probably my most characterful guitar tonally, but it's also the simplest. Good bass level to get some more interesting tones from the amps. And the biggest takeaway here for me at least is that there were some killer tones from both amps. So to answer the question, do you need a pedal platform amp to use pedals? The answer is obviously no, but we already knew all that. That with pedal platform amps you're hearing the pedals on top of the amp, whereas I guess with a non-pedal platform amp like the Copper, you're sort of always hearing the amp on top of the pedals, which a lot of people will prefer. And I prefer it a lot of the time as well. In fact, the Copper is the main amp I use when I'm not recording demos because it has that extra bit of character. But I think as a pedal nerd or someone who kind of uses a lot of different pedals or at least tries a few pedals, you know, buys and sells things, using a non-pedal platform amp, you're going to run into more troubles. Or at least you're going to run into more pedals that just don't work with your setup. There's going to be more trial and error involved in your search for tone. An example of that in this video, I don't think the Gladio sounds that good into the Copper, and I think that's probably because it's sort of an amp-like drive that's then going into a sort of amp-like sound. But into the V40, I think the Gladio sounds pretty incredible. And it's the same when it comes to fuzzers. Fuzzers are always going to be the most picky type of effect to pair with an amp and a guitar and other effects. Interestingly, I wouldn't say there was a heap of difference when it came to the time-based effects, you know, the ambient stuff, the modulation. I could easily work with both of these amps with a load of delay and reverb, and even just into the front end like we were in this video. Just into the front end, the delays and reverbs sounded just as good. I guess the main thing to take away from this video is that there is no wrong answer when it comes to finding your tone. If you think it sounds good, then chances are it is good. Thanks guys for checking out the video. If you like what you saw, please subscribe and maybe check out some more, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys.